you got to work actually at Bollock Sound and be there a lot, right? And also when Tina came in for recording and what you actually, then you started that fan club and you were allowed to do it, right? Please take us through that and talk about how that actually came to pass.
Well, the fan club was basically, I drove like absolutely crazy asking if I could do the fan club. And he kept saying, no, 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 no. It was a joke. And so I played I played a trick on him one day. I sent fan mail to Bollock Sound. And one day, I think at the concert or something, I said, "Oh, did you get my letter?" And he was like, "Man, what letter?" And I said to you about something, 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 something. And he said, "No, I don't have time. We don't have time for no fan stuff, and nobody has time for all that stuff." And da da. So then I just looked at him and I said, "Well, that's my point. You're missing all those fans that are writing letters and da 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 da." And all of a sudden, I was speaking to Ike like that. I looked him straight in the face and I said, "Well, you need someone, and you need me." And then I remember him just going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, give the guy the fan club then." And that's how I started it. But it was only on weekends because I didn't drive then or anything. So it was like once a month on a weekend or something, I could go down to the recording studio. And it was and I had a little corner office, little area, and I would read all the fan mail. But the truth is, I was reading the fan mail and I was answering the fan mail, but I was actually watching more of what was going on because it was fascinating. It was like, it was, I grew up really fast, but I grew up responsible because I think another thing too, the ICATs I got terribly close to, and I was so nosy and I got so close to the ICATs and some of the musicians that basically I used to hang out with them just so I could learn about Tina, and I used to drive them absolutely mad. So I would be in the recording studio, answering the fan mail, doing all that stuff. Then I would get close to the ICATs or the musicians and drive them mad. I never ever got enough. And then to go forward with that, I realized that Ike and Tina's Craig and Ike Jr. were only, I think, a year and a half younger than me. So then I wanted to know more. So I wanted to get to Tina's house. I wanted to go to her house and visit her, and I wanted to do this and that. And da, da, da. So then I came up with this grand scheme idea to become friends with the boys. And I used to literally take the bus and go up and be friends with Ike Jr. and Craig. Craig was always very shy, God bless him. But Ike Jr. and I became very, very close buddies. And then as I got a little bit older, I got a car and I used to drive my car around and go visit the boys. And then I would let them drive the car just so I can get information and get in the house. And I mean, once Tina came home and she looked and she saw me. She goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I came to play with the boys." And she just looked at me like, "Oh God, do I ever get a chance to have a break from this boy?" No, but I was scheming, conniving, clever, fun. And Junior and I were really close for quite a few years. But then again, too, we would do things like, for example, they would have football games and basketball games and baseball games. And I have no interest in sports at all. And I used to just pretend I was watching or whatever. But the only thing is that Ike and Tina used to buy the boys fabulous clothes. And I've always been a clothes horse. And I used to go up and I used to do deals with them. I let them drive my car, which they were underage. I let them drive my car around the block a couple times. They gave me the new boots that Tina bought them back, or a new shirt or whatever. Because what happened was they were beautiful clothes, but they weren't really their style and for kids, Oh, I had a ball changing clothes and doing, yeah. I became besties with them just so I can get to Tina.
And that was when you started to go to their View Park home in Inglewood, wasn't it?
It was Inglewood, but it was called something else. View Park.
View Park, yes.
Yeah, it was called View Park. It was Inglewood, but it was View Park. View Park was the posh side of Inglewood.
Yes. And they actually kept that house how it was in the 70s when Ike and Tina lived there. And it was also used for the movie about her life, What's Love Got to Do with It? And now it's been redecorated and sold eventually. But they kept it there as a ghost house, actually. It was quite remarkable for a long time. But then you got close to Tina, and eventually, how did that happen that she actually let you get that close to her?
I had now started working with Ike and Tina at the recording studio on the weekends. And I would just answer the phone, or if there was a session going on, like, for example, there'd be a Three Dog Night, or these kind of groups would book the studio. And, they just needed someone. They do call it a block booking, and they'd be in the recording studio, and they were doing recording and doing whatever they were doing, and they just needed someone there just to be there to lock up and whatever. So I got the keys to the kingdom, and I started driving then. And then I was there. So I graduated up to working part-time at the recording studio. Then the big bus came, and then Tina went missing. And which a lot of people don't know this. The day that Tina left Ike, Tina left Ike in the evening, I was at the studio that morning working, and Tina came down. She was wearing a beautiful Yves Saint Laurent white suit, and she looked absolutely beautiful as normal. But I do have to say, and Tina and I talked about it later, she was irritated. She wasn't in a good mood that day. She wasn't in good humor. And Ike's little daughter, Mia, was there. And Tina had me on her lap, and they were reminiscing about old pictures. And it was something about what happened was they had missed 5 flights because they couldn't get Ike out of the recording studio because he had been up for days. And so Tina was getting really pissed off, and she was like, very like, I know Tina, so I could see there's a look, and she has that look that she does. And she's like, and there was something in the air. But anyway, they finally got Ike out of the studio, and Thomas and Tina, and they had to dress him. And I think she was in her beautiful white Yves Saint Laurent suit, and here he was just like, and I have to say that if you have not experienced someone who's on drugs, and when they're just like really gone overboard, it's not always pretty, and it's a lot of work, and you look at them sometimes very pathetic, like it's like a drunk, and you look at them and say, oh, why don't you just go have a cup of coffee and go sit down? I mean, and it was that kind of day, and he was just like being pathetic. Oh, can you guys get me this? And they had to physically dress Ike. I mean, actually put his trousers on. I mean, put him in the shower, dry him off, and do the whole thing. Tina was really, whatever. So then by that point, everybody knows the story that the fight in the limousine and and then we get the phone call that Tina's missing. And so then when they come back, Tina's still missing and this and that, Well, when they came back, I was a different person. He was a very aggressive, and he was a little mean. And he thought, I'm going to tell the story. What happened was Tina had gone missing. Nobody knew where she was. Ike had come back with Ann Thomas. Everybody was on needles and pins waiting to hear something from where Tina is. Tina had gone into hiding. There was a phone call that came through. And I answered the phone, Bollock Sound Recording Studio. Hi, can I help you? And it says, hi, can I speak to Ike Turner? And I said, who's calling? And he says, well, I need to speak to Ike Turner. And I said, well, of course, everybody wants to speak to Ike Turner. May I ask who's calling? He said, I'm the doctor representing Tina. And I said, oh, okay, hold on. I'll put you through. So I buzzed Ike and buzzed Ike and buzzed Ike and buzzed Ike, and he wouldn't answer the phone. So I put the guy on hold. I said, please hold on. I ran around to Ike's studio, banging on the wall, trying to get, because what happened with the studio only had a little window, so you can get in the window and try to wave to get his attention. Ike wouldn't pick, oh no, that's right. And then he blocked the other door. So I couldn't get to the window part. So I went back around and said to the guy, I'm really sorry. Can I please have your name and number? And I'll have Ike call you right back. I promise you. And he said, no, I can't give you my name and number, but I have a message for you to give to Ike. And I said, oh, okay. He said, tell Ike that Tina is fine, but I'm looking after her. She cannot work. And I will send him a letter. This was on a Friday. I will send him a letter stating that she can't work, because this is also for insurance reasons, for the bookings they already have booked up, and the Hilton Hotel and or wherever they were. So I said, okay. So I hung on the phone. And no, I remember saying, please, can I get your number so we can call you back? And the guy said, no, I will call him. Well, the doctor was clever because Tina had already told the doctor about Ike. And basically, you don't want to give Ike any information because he'll come look to the doctor's office looking for Tina and have his goonies, shoot the place up or do. Ike was a thug. I mean, let's face it. Let's not get it twisted. Ike was a thug. Okay. Anyway, hung up the phone, whatever. As soon as Ike became free, I ran to Ike and said, Ike, I just got this call. I explained to him the whole thing like I just told you. And he was like, so then Ike turned on me. First time I saw him, I've seen him a little bit cross before and a little bit, but he was always kind of careful when I was around. But
so you never witnessed Ike beating Tina or seeing any of that at all at any time. You only heard about it or what?
Never saw anything like that at all. I did see him attack Rhonda. I saw him physically. Yeah, I did physically saw him attack Rhonda.
What did you see? What did he do to Rhonda?
Well, Rhonda, there was a disease that was going around called sickle cell anemia, and it was quite rapid in the Black community. And they contacted Rhonda because they wanted Ike and Tina to do a charity event. And Rhonda closed it down and said, no, Ike and Tina don't do charity events and da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, finally, this got back to Ike, and Ike went ballistic. And the way the offices were, they were all, Rhonda had her own little office, and we had the office for the reception and all that stuff, but it was all glass, so you could see through. And he came in, and he grabbed something, and he threw it at her, and he grabbed her by the throat, and he banged her head against the wall. And he said, don't you fucking ever, because this was kind of like during a kind of a period time when I think that, again, I think you asked me something a while ago, not on this podcast, but on another thing on a personal level, Ike and Tina's audience. Ike and Tina always had more white audience than Black audience. But they came from the roots. And what you don't do with Black audiences, no, you don't do it. You don't turn your back on your roots. And basically, Rhonda had felt like Ike and Tina didn't need to do this. And Ike was like, no, don't fuck this up. You never turn your back on your roots. So that's why he was upset with Rhonda. And also Rhonda being a white girl and doing this upset him more. And he was in a bad mood and whatever. If Rhonda had to come to him a couple days before that and Ike wasn't in the right mood, he would have said, oh, no, I have no time for all that kind of stuff. It's just that somebody probably came to Ike saying, well, we tried to contact you to do this, and, you turn your back on us, and da-da-da-da, and then Ike went ballistic. Yeah, so I did see him physically attack Rhonda, and it wasn't pretty. And I remember looking through the glass. Oh, God, I just got a chill. I remember looking through the glass, and he just kind of glared and looked at me for a second and carried on. But I never ever saw him attack Tina, hit Tina or anything. Never saw him physically, but I did see the looks. And I did.
So you saw him obviously be physically abusive to Rhonda, which we heard that he was as well. It was also in the book. And it's quite remarkable that she even stayed because she was hired help. She was the manager. Why did she even stay? Was everybody under some kind of mind control under a spell from Ike?
Absolutely. It was a very Ike's mentality was very much like a pimp. Now, if you stop and think about the history of Tina and Thomas, the Ikeettes, all the women, the girls coming back and forth, Ike's mentality. But let's not gloss it over. Ike is street. He came from the streets. He came from the ghetto. He's thug. Ike used to walk around and carry a pistol in his pocket. Not the Mae West version, but the other version. I don't know about that either way. But Ike was a thug. Ike was scary. You didn't fuck with
And
Ike.
so it was also his look and his presence and kind of an energy coming from him that you saw that was scary enough, and not just the beating that we heard about later with Tina, and also people witnessed him beating Tina in the dressing rooms and all of that. Some of the Ikettes have told those stories. But I mean, he became kind of abusive or aggressive towards you on that very last day when Tina had left, right?
Yeah, he got really up in my face. And I must have been, oh gosh, I must have been 16 years old then. And he got really, up in my face. And of course, he's Ike Turner. Of course, I was afraid. And I knew what was going on. By this time, I knew what was going on. I knew what drugs were. I knew what this was and that was. And so what the funny thing was, then he said to me, this is what Ike said. He said, you better give me that phone number. Otherwise, you better get your little black ass out of here. And I said, Ike, that he didn't give me a phone number. I swear to you, I was trying to ring you and I was trying to get through. And it was that kind of thing. Get me the phone number or you're next. It was something and that kind of thing. So then Ann Thomas was upstairs in Ike's apartment with him. Ike stormed off and went up to the apartment. And then Ann Thomas called downstairs, and she was, Ann was funny. She was,
Please tell the audience that does not know who Ann Thomas was. I was going to ask you about her eventually, because she's a key player in the whole Ike and Tina.
Ann Thomas was Ike Turner's mistress. She started off again as a fan, went to the shows to see Ike and Tina Turner, and then Ike saw her, thought she was beautiful, and then he immediately, she was from Bakersfield, he immediately hired her to be an Ikeette, and Ann looked great, but Ann wasn't a singer or a dancer at all. And then they kind of, because in some of the promo early pictures, there's pictures of Ann there. There's and Ann was on stage with them, but it didn't really last that long because Ann wasn't talented in that way, but she was a beautiful woman. And Ann, I know Ann personally, and Ann is very nice. I mean, she does have she takes responsibility for her role, for her life at that time. But she doesn't want to share it. She doesn't want to go into details. Even when they did Tina did her book, I, Tina, with Kurt Loder, Ann wouldn't have any part of the book. She would not talk out against Tina. She wouldn't discuss that part of her life. She absolutely, I think out of fairness to Ann, I can honestly say that she's always had that much respect for Tina. Has a lot of shame. You know, when you're young, it's different. She had a child for Ike. Tina looked after that child also and was very kind. Ann and Tina had a very strange relationship. Strange in the way that Tina couldn't make friends because they would all be fired and leave and come and go. But she and Ann had a lot in common as far as what Tina did like about Ann is that Ann was pretty, and Ann was one of those kind of people too. She never wanted to be a star or in the limelight. She always liked being in the background. She loved being Ike's mistress. She loved having his baby. She loved Tina. She was devoted to Tina, but they were both in a kind of situation which Tina explains in her book. But Ann is a decent woman. She's a good woman.
But why would she go into this relationship with Ike when he was married to Tina and they became like sister wives? I think Tina mentioned that they were like together all the time. Ike would lie spread across both of them on the airplanes, yeah, and all of that. They were like, it was like, it's such a strange and unusual and peculiar relationship.
To be honest with you, if you stop and think about it realistically, it is strange, but it's not strange. It is strange because Ike and Tina Turner were married. They were together. They husband and wife, big superstars, doing all this traveling and this and that and da da da. But in the reality, Tina does explain in her book that Ike and Tina were more like brother and sisters. They crossed that line, and Ike only crossed that line overly with Tina to keep control on his product. So Tina was a business deal for Ike. For some reason, and I find this really strange, here's a man that's got the most beautiful woman, prettier than all of the Ikeettes, prettier than even Ann Thomas, and the most talented and all that, and you're not attracted to her. I mean, no, let me clear that up. You're not, men used to pass out just to look at Tina and her legs and that hair and those lips. She was the man's, I did say he named Tina after some jungle woman, whatever.
Sheena, the jungle queen, huh?
And Tina was. Men used to fall out over Tina. So why didn't I fall out over Tina? It must have been, it could have been, it came from, I do think that it came from the fact that because they were together, you got to remember, I think it was like 2 or 3 years before they got Fool in Love, and they were buddies. They were buddies. And remember,
they just weren't, energetically compatible. That's, I think, in a way you could.
Think that it wasn't. He wasn't. They weren't overly attracted to each other. Tina makes it very clear. But then I think that when you do get someone that it's the authority thing, and then this, and let's face it, I did explain this earlier, which is very important. Tina was very ambitious. Tina knew. I mean, Tina knew what she was doing too. So it wasn't like, oh, this, and I'm not saying that Tina tried to make it like it was one-sided, but Tina was a very ambitious woman. She's a hard worker, and she always knew what she wanted, and she always wanted the best. And that was her ambition. So she basically felt like, okay, I'll take your shit for a while, but you know what? At the end of it, and she did.
Maybe you can fall in love on demand or because of your situation and how it was, because she does talk about her falling out of love when, I think, around that time when he had Ann Thomas and she got pregnant and had the girl and all of that. And then she started really kind of hating Ike because the beatings kept coming and she couldn't, it wasn't worth living. And she tried to commit suicide, in 68, yes, around that time when everything was as dark as it could be. But Ann Thomas, you say, was nice lady, and suddenly there was this situation where Tina and her were together all the time, right? Except when Ike was with Ann Thomas. But do you think Ike was in love with Ann Thomas? That's what we hear, right?
Well, I think that Ann Thomas was the one that Ike, if you're going to say that Ike loved anyone, I don't think Ike loved anyone. Ike loved himself. But out of all the women, Ann Thomas was the one. Ann Thomas was the one.
Right.
Yeah. But at the same time, Ike Turner was, he was just as, he was just as mean and nasty to Ann Thomas. And he only married Ann Thomas to get back at Tina because he thought Tina was going to be upset about it.
Yes. Yeah. So Ike married Ann Thomas after Tina had left. And at that time, he knew that Tina was not coming back. But she stayed, and then eventually she married him. Why do you think? Because he was also abusive and violent towards Ann Thomas, right? Equally.
Well, she stayed where, by this time, Ann Thomas must have been, I'm not good with the numbers, but Ann must have been of age now. Where was she going to go? What was she going to do? What experience did she have? Men get women to be in these positions, and all of a sudden you go, well, how can I take care of, Ann never took care of herself before. And was in love with Ike. So Ike was still quite wealthy then. You got to remember something else too. This is the part that a lot of people don't realize, and I'm going to make it very clear. Ike and Tina were terribly rich. They were terribly rich, okay? Ike had so much money and property. There was so much cash. They worked nonstop. da da da, but he wasn't going to let Tina have any of it. And a lot of the reason why I did a lot of these things, because he actually really believed being coked up and being drunk and all his kiss ass brown nose people hanging around him, he thought Tina was going to come back. He really, because he always had power over people and whatever, but he missed, what's the word I want to say? He overrated himself, you know, because Tina does, and Tina did, I think in the last book, My Love Story, Tina admits a lot more in My Love Story. Oh gosh, there's so much. Oh God, I could go on and on, but she admits more in My Love Story because back in the day when she did still write Tina was still afraid of Ike. I mean, you know, she was still afraid of this man. We still didn't know. We still didn't know people. I mean, she had security. She had this, she had that. There was no problem with all that kind of stuff. But it was one of those kind of things, a little bit, that little part in the last bit of the movie, which I do have to say, I didn't like What's Love Got to Do with It. I didn't like Angela Bassett playing Tina. I thought she was nothing like Tina. And a lot of things were, and I saw something recently when Tina said, no, I couldn't watch it for a number of reasons, but they didn't get it right. I lost my train of thought. What I was saying to you about
the last part of the movie when Ike supposedly comes into her dressing room, which is not really what happened, obviously.
And he was in the mirror talking to her while she was getting her makeup on. See, the psychological is so powerful. Psychological is so powerful to the point of that's what Ike was good at, psychologically getting in people's minds. Do you remember there was a song that Tina sang and wrote called Let Me Touch Your Mind?
Oh, absolutely. An amazing song that she wrote. She wrote so many of their songs, actually. Many of the albums, Tina penned all of them, wrote them. A lot of people don't know how many songs she wrote, and they were really good. So, yes, that's a brilliant one.
Yeah, and Let Me Touch Your Mind is exactly the way Let Me Touch Your Mind was Ike's way.
I'll be good to you, baby. I'll be just what you want. I can make you happy, and I know that you can make me happy, but you just got to let me in, let me touch your mind. Let me in, baby, let me touch your mind. Let me in, let me in, baby. Oh, let me touch you. I want to get next to you.
Let me touch your mind.
It was like putting her and a lot of people under mind control, kind of a brainwash situation, right?
Absolutely, completely.
Through trauma, which is the most effective way.
And on something else too, to go to a psychological thing. You know, it's funny because you and I were talking the other day about something, and we were talking about Tina never ever got yeah, she had Buddhism. I see you have your Buddha in the background. I love it, which is great. But a lot of people don't realize it's like being traumatized, abused, raped, all these kind of things of growing up in a bad family and being locked in a room and all this stuff. If you don't really get professional help, that's always going to be in the back of your mind, following you see. And one of the things is that I did see, broke my heart actually. I know you and I have different opinions about this. Oh gosh, don't want to get emotional. When Tina did the last documentary thing, and when she says, "Look what I've done with this body," I'm just a girl from the cotton fields. Look at me. And you look at that footage and you see this incredible woman and all the stuff that she has gone through and she has put up with. And I was just going to say this to intertwine into that. After Ike, because Tina didn't get therapy really for the Ike Turner stuff. After Ike was Roger. Oh, I'm going to get it. Oh, they're going to come after me. How can you say that about Roger? Listen to me carefully. Listen and you'll learn. Roger was another one that came in. He was very controlling with Tina, but in a good way. Very controlling.
Really?
Very controlling. Yes. Yes. And that's where I come in a little bit, because Roger wanted to have control over Tina. I will never forget, there was a time we were in Monte Carlo and Tina was having the affair with James Ralston at the time, and Roger didn't approve and whatever, and we had gone out. And these are Tina's words. We had gone out, we were in Monte Carlo, and Tina didn't have that much money at the time, and we had all gone out to have a meal and or something. Yeah, to stop and have some drinks. And Roger knew, because he had the money, and Tina says, oh, we're going to get drinks for everybody. Roger didn't approve about James Ralston and Tina being together, because...
And just for the audience that don't know, James Ralston was Tina's longtime guitar player. He was on tour with her for many, many years. Yeah.
Yes. Roger didn't really approve of him either. And we needed some money, Roger, and Roger was the only one that had money. And Roger was a bit funny. He didn't want to give Tina the money. And Tina turned to me and she said, Eddie, do you have any money? I said, oh, gosh, you know, if anybody, I don't have any money. Tina and I never had any money. And she said, you know something? She goes, I'm going to get myself a position. I never will ever be in a position to ask anyone for any money. I want my own money. Because at that time was the beginning of the changing of the Tina thing, and Roger was still helping finance certain things through whatever. But yes, Roger was going to complete control freak. Good manager, don't misunderstand me. I mean, they don't make managers like Roger. Roger's a genius. But then again, too, geniuses go off the rails too. Toward the latter part of the years of Tina's career and her success, he didn't want Tina to work with black producers. He didn't want Tina to take songs from black artists. He didn't want Tina to work with any Americans. He was good when he was good, and then after Private Dancer, I'm sorry, after Foreign Affair. After Foreign Affair, then Tina's next album was Wildest Dreams, right?
Yeah, that was that was the soundtrack for the movie with new songs.
No.
Compilations with new songs.
Wildest Dreams came out before that soundtrack, didn't it?
No. The soundtrack was in 1993. Wildest Dreams was in 96.
Oh, okay. I do apologize. When he did Wildest Dreams, yes, there was some good stuff in there, but it should have been better. Why was Tina doing a cover of Missing You, which was so close to the original? Tina Turner, when she puts her stamp on something, she makes it her own. That album was a little bit too white. And from that point on, Roger made everything very white. Again, his control thing or whatever. And don't misunderstand me. Like I said, up until that point, I think he was absolutely brilliant when they did I Don't Want to Fight and all that stuff and all that other stuff and whatever. But again, too, Roger is Australian, and he loves music and he grew up in a music thing. But I do think that he got a little bit too overly, because I'm talking as a fan now. I'm talking as a fan. I'm not talking about politically. They start losing me after Wildest Dreams, because I just felt the music didn't have any substance to it, the way that Tina Turner, my Tina, delivered music. They started making it too watered down. They were just songs that were good songs, but didn't have Tina's stamp
The material
You know what
was
I mean?
certainly did not live up to the standard of, especially Foreign Affair, which is my favorite album. Nothing will top that one, and also Break
Mhm.
Every Rule and Private Dancer. I liked the Wildest Dreams album, but it was a strange new road for Tina, very overproduced in a way. And then that
Completely
last one, which
overproduced.
was 24/7 in '99, which was her last big full studio album, sadly
Well,
to
first of
say,
all, if you're going to
that
talk
was not
about
the
that,
best.
now we're going to talk about that, and I have to say this is something I don't care about, and I just want to clear up something for anyone. This is my view. These are my words. This is my vision. This is what I see. And I've gotten a lot of criticism of good things, but I've gotten a lot of criticism of nasty things. And I just want to say to the haters out there, do you know something? If you shut up and not be so full of hatred and listen, then you'll get the whole story of the love, because it's not about anything except love. We don't do anything. When we talk about Tina, everything about Tina is about love, but it's the trials and tribulations of life that we go through. So if you're not mature enough to handle the truth, then don't listen.
That's
I
why
just
we
had to
go
say,
through this interview today, where we do go in
I
depth
had to
and we
say
have
that.
time to talk about all of these things, because there has been a lot of love for you for doing this, and a lot of hate as well, because they've people felt you betrayed Tina by giving that story
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. And you know what? To a lot of the people that feel I betrayed Tina, yes, I think that there was a couple times that you know, it's sad that my relationship and Tina's relationship ended up the way it was. And I think that out of fairness and being totally open-hearted and totally 100% gospel truth, when I was pushed out and really pushed out, I was so tired. I was so exhausted. And what I was really tired of is that the woman I loved the most in my life, and every bit of ounce that I was able to spend with her and be with her, I always still, in the other hand, on the corner of my head, had these green-eyed monsters that were trying to get rid of me. They didn't like me from the beginning. And I did nothing but look after Tina and be with her. And I snapped. You know, no, there are things that I could have done different. Yes. And if someone betrayed me the way I betrayed Tina, I would be upset too. But the one thing that I did keep my truth to is that I only told the truth the way it was, not the way it was written. And my book, before it was released, was sent to Tina. There was a couple things in the book that she asked me not to put in that I didn't put in. Even with the updated version, I still would never put those things in the book because she asked me not to. But what Tina didn't do.
So you sent the book to Tina before it was published?
Oh, yeah, you have to do that legally. Oh, you have to.
But you have to try and stop the book, and they bought all of the books, and you never really got what you.
Well, no. What they did do, no, they never tried to stop the book, because they couldn't stop the book because I was telling the truth. So you can't stop the truth. That's number one. And one of the things that Tina did do is, like I said, she went through the book with a fine-tooth comb, and she did ask me to take out a couple things, which I agreed to take out, but the rest of the book, they didn't try to stop the book because I was telling the truth. Okay. But what they did do is then they went behind the scene, and it wasn't Tina, it was Roger, went behind the scene and made a deal with the devil, with my publishers. And then they fucked me over. And basically, we can't stop him telling the truth. So what we can do is stop the book being a success. So what they did was release the book. And then at the last minute, I was due to do all this promo, all this work and whatever. And just for all of the people out there that don't know, I will set the record straight. My book was only ever released in the UK. Okay. It was illegally released underground to the world. But of course, that was to save them from accounting. I never made one dime from that book. I was completely 100% ripped off. I did get a £10,000 advance, and I had to divide it 3 ways or whatever, but that was helped me over to write the book. But I never made a dime on the book. And even when the book came out, serialization, for for the Sun was £10,000 on its own that I never saw a dime of. So I was totally ripped off. So going back to the ripoff of the book was that basically they went ahead and said, we can't stop him, put the book out, but kill the book. And that's what happened to my book.
And I'm so fascinated because I don't think we've talked so much over the years. I've never heard that you actually sent it to Tina and she looked at it and knew that you were publishing this book. And
oh no, she didn't. Oh no, absolutely, she didn't look at it. When you write a book, and especially a book of my caliber, it's all about Tina Turner, and I'm using her name professionally, but the other side of what a lot of people don't get, this is the pisses me off about people, read and you will learn. Don't judge and think you know it all. I could have not released that book unless Tina felt that it was true. If it wasn't true, they could have still had me up in lawsuits. They could have put had me tangled up in lawsuits and all that kind of stuff. And when it gets the book release and all that, but because Roger and Tina both at that time were very clever and smart, it was like, let them go ahead and release the book because it is true. And there's only a couple things in there I request that be taken out. And like I said, again, for all of you who don't listen, I did take those things out of respect for Tina. Some of the stories, yes, I had to reread the book and update it. I have to say I'm very proud of the book. I'm very proud because it's like my life. And that's why I retitled the book with the updates and the new pictures and this and that. And then I love the new cover. Oh God, I fought for the new cover. And then of course, I was already working on this before Tina passed away. And as you know, Lucas, you're a witness that I've been working on this for quite a long time. And then when I found out that Tina had passed, of course, I went into shock and I had to put everything on hold and do whatever. And then it was a matter of, like I said, there was some people trying to get me to get it out the next day, 2 weeks later. And I just absolutely was appalled. No matter what a lot of people think of me, I have a heart and I do have a conscience. And I just thought, oh, this is really fucking bad taste and I won't be a part of it. But yes, Tina did know. They got it beforehand and whatever. But my book was only released in the UK. And then there was some copies, like I said, that were black underground that were released around the world. And people, I'm absolutely appalled that some of them just recently, my old book that people have that they're trying to sell for £500. I never made a dime on the fucking book and they're selling my book. They bought it for £20 and they're selling it for £500. Oh my gosh. But
and you know what? When I was in my early teens and I was traveling around to see Tina and meeting her, and also I actually have wonderful memories of Roger, and he was very nice to me. But I remember when your book came out, I purchased it. I had to get it from England, and I have it here still the same. That's the one I got in '98, and I've been.
Oh my gosh, your book's in good condition.
Are you kidding me? I'm keeping it well here. Yes, definitely. And
but I have to say that I was so and when I did do the book, I did take the extra time. I made sure that I followed through. Like with the pictures, I fought for that. Well, I did fight for the cover, the back pictures, and a lot of people didn't get that Tina's favorite color was red. Her red nails, her red lips, and this and that. So I made sure that you could see the nails, the lips, and then the real T was in red. I wanted it to be like it was written almost on your mirror like a lipstick, but that didn't follow through for a book cover. But that's what I wanted. I was really, I have to say honestly, I was really, really proud. Of course, I was absolutely crushed and devastated that the book died on his ass. But at the same time, I do respect the fact that a lot of people felt at that time, well, what is there to know about Tina? We know everything now. You know what I mean? And a lot of people that didn't even read my book and still haven't read it, all thought it was gossip, that it was like dissing Tina and it was putting her down and it was this. Well, you know something, you are so wrong. It does nothing but highlight the love that I have and I will always have. And that
it is an incredibly fascinating, thrilling, eye-opening, and unbelievably in-depth and revealing book, and all of your stories. And it's a page turner. And yes, it may be a lot. There may be a lot of gossip, but I'm telling you, this is. I mean, for a fan, it certainly. Many fans have. Some fans have criticized it and said horrible things about you saying that about their idol.
Well, do you know something? I actually, when I met Chanel last year, and she had read and done a lot of research on Tina, and and Chanel, thank you for this. She came up to me and she said, "It's your book that gave me an insight of Tina in a different way." I have read that book. I have laughed. I have cried. I have gone. There are a couple times I've gone, "Oh, Eddie, did you really mean to tell that?" Like the James Ralston thing and the dressing room thing. Well, do you know what?
Well, tell that story though, Eddie.
I don't know. I don't want to tell that on film. I don't want to tell it because it's in the book. I thought it made Tina very rock and roll. At that time, she was very rock and roll. She was working with Rod Stewart. She was getting her mojo back with the Stones, and we were done Philadelphia with the Rolling Stones, and Mick took a cordless mic and stuck it between Tina's legs, and Tina was running from Mick and he was chasing her. It was all rock and roll fun, for God's sakes. Tina is rock and roll. I mean, all these fucking people that think, yeah, I get a little cross sometimes, think, oh, that is so, saint. Tina was fabulous. Saint, she wasn't. But she was not what people thought she was. But she was no saint. So let's not get it twisted. And a lot of the fans are so sweet and so giving. And I know what it's like. It's like, you know what it reminds me of a little bit? It's like a family member. You know, your family member in the family has robbed a couple houses in the neighborhood. And the neighbors come to tell you about it and you just won't have it. But deep down inside, you know it's true, but you won't have it. When we love someone and something and people in our lives, we want to protect them. And of course, we don't want to hear anything that they're actually normal. You know, if I said to someone or mentioned in my book that Tina, actually uses toilet roll, they'd be, oh my gosh, oh, I don't want to hear that about myself. Oh, get over yourself. You know, at the end of the day, she's human, like all the rest of them. And you know something else too, which is the sad thing, but the truth. And I know Tina, she was very materialistic. She worked her ass off to get all the things that she wanted. Like I said, she wasn't overly generous, but she was generous to herself, and she deserved to be generous to herself because everybody had taken from her.
But when you became her assistant, when you started to do practically everything for Tina, she even taught you how to make her wigs and everything. I mean, you did everything. You took care of the boys and her home and on the road as well. I mean, at that time, she was quite strict with you, wasn't she? You revealed that in your book, that she was tough with you.
Oh, she was the best teacher in the world. I tell you why. She didn't play around. She didn't joke around. If she told you how to do something, there used to be the 3-strike Tina, and she would tell you what to do for you to get it. Second time you come, you haven't quite got it. Okay, let me show you again. Pay attention. Da 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 da. If you didn't have it by the third time, you were out. Because the reason why it wasn't Tina being so overly hard, she had no time. She was so busy doing so many other things, being Tina Turner, that what she needed Eddy Armani for, what she needed Lejeune for, what she needed James Ralston for, what she needed the musicians to do, is do what your part. I know your part, but I don't want to do your part, and that's why I hired you. So do your part so I don't have to do your part, and we'll get on fine. And that was Tina's attitude.
Talk about Tina's wonderful, she sounds amazing, wonderful sister, Aline. She also worked for Tina for a while, right? And she was like somebody you were very close to. She was quite different from Tina, wasn't she?
Aline was fantastic. She was, oh my gosh, when I was a little boy and after I realized who Aline was and all that stuff, Aline and I got on House on Fire, and I used to bake cakes for Tina and take them over to Tina, and Aline would say, boy, you better bring me a cake next time. You know, all you do is talk about Anne, and all you do, and see, I was very, I used to go hang out with Aline, and all I would talk about was Tina. Aline only called Tina in front of people, but otherwise she'd call her Anne. And Aline always kept that realness and that edge of a Southern thing about her. She was fabulous. She was fabulous. The boys loved her. And she'd come and make sure everything was okay. And then during the time, even during the time when because I volunteered, because Aline was working a job, and she had Jackie, who was her daughter. And we had the house in Lower Canyon. And then this is a time when I got really crazy, and Tina had to go into hiding. So everything was crazy. And I used to go up there and visit Aline and talk to Aline and stuff like that. And I said, Aline, how's it going? She goes, you know, this shit's getting on my nerves. I mean, Aline was so funny. And I said, me being me, I said, oh, Aline, I can help you out a bit. She would say to me, boy, you're only 1 year older than these kids. Now, what you gonna do? I said, Aline, listen, I raised my brother and sister. Well, my mother, there was 3 of us, and I had to look after my brother and sister. I know how to look after these little brats, and I did. And she was so relieved and so happy, because I moved into the house. And slept in Tina's bed. Are you jealous, fans, now? I slept in Tina's bed more than once. Anyway, the haters out there.
That's so funny.
And I showered in Tina's shower. And this is before the early days. I mean, after Tina got the big house and all that stuff, I was in heaven. No, but I did. And Aline was so relieved, because it was hard. But Aline was the loveliest person. She was just so kind, and she was witty, and she was funny, and she was totally the opposite of Tina. Aline was very demure, and very everything about Tina that's animated, Aline was a smaller version of. And she loved her sister. But she would when I used to live with Tina years later, Aline would come over and Jackie would come over to do whatever. And you know what? They come over and she wanted to see her sister, and they have a good time and all that. She goes, and I had enough of you now. I'm going home. That their relationship, they were so sisters, and it was so bonding, and it was so genuine. And she was, and Aline was feisty. Don't mess with Aline. I mean, Aline was feisty, and everybody went to Aline. Aline loved everybody. She loved family around her. Aline was the heart of the family for the boys and all that kind of stuff.
So Aline was like the glue that kept everything together in a way.
Always.
I know that Tina loved her sister very much, and much more than her mom, actually. Right? I mean, that was a difficult.
Well, Tina's relationship, and one of the things that I will slip and say that Tina asked me to take out, it was a relationship that she had with her mother, and it was a situation that I happened to be there and witness something. And Tina was right. Ma could be quite difficult, and that was before Tina's big comeback. She just was. She always, I think, I'm going to get in trouble here, but I think that realistically, I think that actually Ma had a little, I think, see, everybody was kind of back in the day in St. Louis. Ike was the big kingpin. And, back in those days, money talked, and, the big Cadillac and the furs and all that stuff. And I think that Ma was one of those kind of women that kind of looked at Ike a little sideways. Not that there was anything ever going on there. Don't misunderstand me, haters. But what I'm saying is that Ike was a big fish in those days. And also, if you remember in the movie, which was one of the few things in the movie that is actually correct, when Ike used to go around, Ahmad didn't want Tina seeing Ike and singing in the club and all that stuff. And then, he'd go around there and to get Tina to come to a gig, and Mud was like, well, no, she's not going to come. Then he said, well, will this help? And he pulled out some money. Mud's whole relationship with Ike was about money. After Tina started working, it became Tina, all that. Mud lived in Ike's house in St. Louis. Mud was provided by Ike. The thing that also gets me too, and I do make it quite clear, everybody always goes on about what Ike did and how generous he was and this and that, but nobody mentions that was Tina's money too, and he was just giving it out to everybody like it was nothing. So everybody always thought, Ike always made sure that it was him that was doing all this so that he would get the credibility, so people would turn a blind eye that he was knocking his wife around and sleeping with anything that had a pulse.
Well, Aline, of course, took care of the children. You took care of the children. Rhonda took care of the children. But there was a special housekeeper, and she played a significant role as well. Her name was Anne Kane. Can you talk about her a bit?
Yeah, Anne Kane was interesting. She was very, Tina describes Anne Kane in her book, and it's true. Anne Kane was very pretty. She was, I think she was from the South or something, but she never had an accent. And she was also, I don't know, she married one of the Temptations, the one with the deep, deep voice. She married him. I think it was him she married. And that was after the Ike and Tina thing or whatever. But Anne Kane was another one. She was very, very organized and educated and well-groomed and all that. But she was another one. She was a very conniving little madam. No, she was conniving. And see, Anne Kane, Ann Thomas was not conniving in the way Anne Kane was conniving.
Really? In what way?
She just, you had to always be, and it was really funny that Tina brought Anne Kane back into her life after the Ike and Tina days to work for her. But sometimes I wonder if Tina's motivation, if it wasn't a little bit kind of like, you used to be the manager, you used to be so in love with Ike, and you used to be this, and you used to kind of treat me a certain way and this and that and da-da-da. And now the tables have reversed, and you're basically my maid.
That's quite bitchy, if that was the intention. But so Anne Kane was not, she was, of course, one of Ike's mistresses as well. But and before she married the gentleman from the Temptations, right?
Temptations.
Yeah, but but you got to remember, he was not nice to Tina, or what? Even though she was taking care of the boys.
If you remember in Tina's book, Tina, there's a part in the book when Tina says Anne Kane got really bold because she started wanting Tina to ride on the bus with the band. And she said, I have to ride in the car with Ike. There's not enough room for Tina because they had to talk business. She was all over to Ike. She wanted Ike for herself. But the other side of the coin is, you got to remember something too. Without going into being vulgar, Ike had something going on between the sheets because it wasn't just the money and something else. These women were losing their minds over him. And Tina also, and they do say that short men and ugly men and tall, skinny men or whatever, these women, are not attracted to, but then they end up losing their minds over. So I think Ike had that quality.
And it's difficult for me, for example, or somebody else probably to see that. Why did he have that ability? What was it about him, do you think? He was married 13 times, wasn't he?
Control and between the sheets.
Right. But supposedly Anne Kane was very good with raising the children.
Yeah, she was very strict, and she was good because they had been so many different housekeepers that come in and out or whatever. But Anne Kane she was brought up with good manners. She came from a good family. She did all that, and it was good. Anne Kane was, and I tell you something, When I used to call Tina up before I start working with Tina, and Tina had got the second house, and Ann Kane came in because the boys were throwing parties, and Tina had to work and do all this stuff. And then Ann came in. She was very good. She cleaned. She was very strict with the boys, and she wasn't afraid of them and all that kind of stuff or whatever. And I used to call up to the house and say, "Oh, hi, Ann. Can I speak to Tina, please?" And she goes, "Yes, who's calling?" And I say, "Oh, hi, Ann. It's Eddie. It's Eddie Hampton. It's Eddie Hampton." She goes, "Oh, let me see if she's available." And she was very grand with me, and she was a cow.
Did she talk like that?
Well, no, I'm exaggerating a bit, but no, she spoke quite well actually. And she's come back and she says, "I'm sorry, Tina's not available." And I would say, "Okay," and I would call back again, and she would do the same thing. So I had this little thing that I would do with Tina, because I think Tina was getting a little bit too big for her boots. So I would say, "Well, would you tell your Majesty when she's available, can she please fit it in her schedule to give me a call?" You know. Oh, yes.
How did that go down with Tina?
10 minutes later, Tina was on the phone.
What did she say to you?
No, Tina would not take herself that serious. When you broke it down, like I was such a fan. I adored her. She knew I adored her. But then I called several times, and Ann was a little, and sometimes with Ann Thomas, I'm sorry, Ann Kane, you never knew if Ann had really told Tina that I really called. You know, she was she was conniving.
So there was a problem also between you and Ann Kane, like with Rhonda and Roger and all of these people.
No, it wasn't. No, I never had a problem with Ann Kane because I never was. I never had any real overly involvement with Ann. Ann was there, whatever. She didn't find me as a threat or anything. She just was being very kind of like, "Oh, like Tina is like, the queen." She just kind of, Ann lived through Tina. And she lived through, Ann wanted to be Tina. She lived through Tina. She did, so she did all that, so that she could, and Tina knew. She says it in Tina about her. And Ann Kane is one of the only few women where Tina lost it and went and grabbed a hammer to go after her, and she slipped on the wax floor. But she was going to have Ann. She was going to have her.
Yeah, because she found Ann Kane in a very, let's say, revealing position with Ike, right?
Darling. Yes, it was porno time.
Porno time. Yes. Wow, yeah. It must have been so difficult for her to witness all of that and see all of that going on in her life. Right.
It was horrible. It was horrible. Like I said.
Did Tina ever confide in you or tell you what it was like in all of those days? Did you ever see that vulnerable side where she would talk about what she had gone through? I want to thank you all for watching my show, The Lucas Alexander Show, and this special tribute series I'm doing remembering the Queen of Rock, Tina Turner. She will always and forever be simply the best. Please like and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for notifications. Your support is greatly appreciated. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again soon.